So on to the next part. So installing F# Power Tools is really important. It makes it so you could put your files into folders. F#, the way it does things, every file has to be a different name, and order matters, because if it has to be above whatever all the required files. So if you require one file in another, you have to make sure that that file is above it. It is a bit of a pain, but at the same time, it makes everything nice and orderly. You know, if you're looking for a file and it depends on another, it's going to be above that file. So, you know, there's pros and cons to everything. F# doesn't, cyclical references are not allowed. So it just, there's debate of whether that makes you more productive or if it's better overall, but I prefer it. And it does seem to make your code a little more straightforward. Whether from a scientific point of view it is better or not, I have no idea. But you could look on different websites and they show some C# projects, some F# projects, and they show the different the cyclical dependencies versus the dependencies in F# where they kind of build on top of each other, and how C# kind of looks like spaghetti, and F# is just all a nice clean line going from one side to the other. So we're going to take those the database calls, and we're going to bring it into its own modules, and that's what I'm setting up here. This is just kind of a pattern that I've developed with the web services, and then call for everything that you call. So I do it for databases, and then other web services that you call, so maybe a REST API call, or one of the old school RPC calls. And with F#, using type providers, especially these ones that call the database and call the other services to make sure that the WSDL, I believe, is the data provider. It's like WSDL provider or something like that. Anyway, they kind of bog down your project, and so eventually you have to create other projects to wrap around these projects, because it makes the compiling really slow, it makes opening your file really slow, and so or maybe it was just my old computer that made opening the file really slow. But anyway, normally I'd put this in another project, and it probably is good for separation of concerns. So here you can see I'm using the async execute that I was talking about before, and it's really, really straightforward. So and now I'm gonna show you how to create variables inside. So I mean, it's basically just SQL syntax. We're creating the at first name, at last name. Now if you do use like at first name in multiple spots in the SQL query, you do have to do a declare statement, because then it'll have issues trying to figure it out for some reason, not sure why. But if you just use it in that one spot, it says, okay, I could infer what it needs to be. And here we'll separate out the the model into its own models folder. And you can see there also when you do create a folder and you put something in it, you do need to move it up and down so so the tools can have help to know where it's supposed to be at, where the new files are supposed to be at. If you don't do that, then it'll just assume that it's supposed to be at the end, and then you'll be like, oh crap, where's it supposed to go? And so it's just, yeah. So just remember to move it up and down. Alt arrow up, alt arrow down for moving folders and files around. And a lot of times you don't necessarily need to, like in C#, a lot of times you have your models all in a single file all by themselves. It's not necessarily the case in F# because everything is so concise. A lot of times you'll, like typically I'll have my DTOs all in a single file. And so I just push DTO dot and then whatever model I need. And I think eventually I do move it into its own model, into a DTO model instead of person. But yeah, refactor. And auto open there, you could see that above the module. That just makes it so you don't actually need to call the person. So you could do that for any old module. And then the module config equals, so we're just kind of giving an alias to that module name. I didn't know how to do that for the longest time. And so it's just kind of nice sometimes. It makes it easier to find what you're looking for, but not have to type in that big old long name. And to do it, you do need to have it declared in the module. And sometimes, I mean, some people I think will probably put multiple modules in the same file, depending on the size and the scope. And, it's variable. So do what you think is best. Scott Floshland on his F# for Fun and Profit, he actually has an article, a blog post on how to organize your modules, and I think I might have read it a long time ago, but I need to read it again to remember, just to get a different perspective and organize my things a little better. But what I've been doing has worked for me so far.